And we're back once again, only on its last call. Last call at the alcohol, only on the Last Call podcast on YouTube.com. And join me here for this exclusive YouTube interview. We've missed him. He was, dare I say, in mourning. He was also frustrated with some things. And like you, he was fiddling around trying to figure out how to work that goddamn WWE ESPN thing. And he nearly probably, I can't confirm nor deny, but he was ready to start, as he said, cracking some skulls. God damn it, explain this crap. He might have been hungover a bit because of his son's birthday, but it's a different story for a different day. I give you once again the man with the largest arms in the world, naturally. I give you Kevin Apollo. So Kevin will start off here with, so it's Crown Perth. It's going to be Saturday, October 11th at 8 a.m. in the morning. Oh my God, it's Australia.
I know.
I love the matches. I hate that it's in friggin' Australia. And look, I get it. WB likes to get as much money as possible. Those Aussies are willing to bend over and pay for everything down under. But Kevin, I know that this is basically secretly WWE disciplinary committee, but God damn it, WWE seems like grabbing everybody by the ankle, shaking them for that last like $13. Like, should we start worrying that this is no longer like a family friendly organization, but it's now just give us all your money. We don't give a rat's ass.
Well,
Give us the goddamn money.
I don't think we need to be afraid it's here. The everybody wanted to complain about Vince, but Vince understood something about the wrestling business that I don't think TKO understands yet, or frankly, they may not even care. Wrestling, because of its nature, is a family attraction. It's one of the few things that bounces all over the country, and it's designed for you to come see it. So it relies on generational capture. Your 10-year-old at a wrestling show eventually becomes an 18-year-old. That 18-year-old becomes a 28-year-old, and that 28-year-old has kids, and then they have an 8-year-old, and then everything it starts all over again. But you have to have the ability to have mom, dad, kids, friends, or family with a bunch of kids be able to go. This is very much so the last blue collar entertainment out there, and TKO seems hell bent on taking that away. Now, I can't blame them for wanting to take the Disney money. Some of this is Disney is very desperate to keep ESPN afloat. ESPN's been nothing but an albatross for almost for what, almost 15 years now. So they're leveraging the popularity of the WWE to get people to go to this app. I skipped last week's event because I was just out. I was out and about and just didn't feel like having to download something. So I don't know how simple it was. I got a little tickled out of the SmackDown segment from last week, making fun of, I'm assuming, Meltzer directly because they needed to teach the old guys how to go find the app. But aside from that, if I get to it, I get to it. If I grew up for a long time not watching a pay-per-view every month or every 4 freaking weeks. So if I got to go back to that for a little while, I'll just go back to that for a little while. It's to me, it just kind of, it is what it is. They went to the premium live event format because technically these weren't pay-per-views. But on ESPN, it kind of seems like we're back to a pay-per-view format, and it's stupid because WWE just is getting all the money. I missed the network. We had a really good thing going with the network. Still wasn't as good as W 24/7, but the network was the network was a good thing, and now we're kind of back in the pseudo pay-per-view era, and it sucks.
Like, the bigger worry I have is you're starting to almost push out the non-major market cities in terms of where they're going. I mean, you look around, it's great, Crown Perth in Australia.
Yep.
That means that, there's going to be a lot of TV dates that, used to go to. I'm not even talking like small markets like Hartford. I'm talking now mid markets like Trenton, Bangor. You could argue even Worcester. They no longer get them. You're going to be, there's going to be shoved out. Like, and I get it, it's capitalism, but when do you start worrying if you're a wrestling fan? It's like it's going to be, unless you're in the major cities like Boston, Los Angeles, Chicago,
That's
maybe Cleveland. Miami, Dallas. Your W's not even going to pay attention anymore. They're just going to
But
ignore those cities.
that's it. You hit it on the head though. The problem, the WWE, I get it. House shows have become exponentially more expensive, which is why they reduced the schedule, and which is why they pick and choose who's going to be in the show. Right? If a house show is going to break even, but you have Roman Reigns in it, that house show is now in the red, and they want things to be in the black. But it is still those smaller markets that do need attention. So unless the WWE is going to turn around and they're going to have, let's say, NXT fill the main roster void, then we have a really big problem. We have a really big problem because they're going to risk that generational capture. The one thing I will say for sure is I don't think I guess football is probably the outlier here, but even then, I don't think football is nearly as popular as it used to be. What even just 10 years ago? Same thing for basketball. Probably the same thing for baseball. You've got three major sports that have gone out of their way to price out the average consumer, and other than the fact that they're major pastimes with major TV presences, I don't see anybody really talking about how they're going to go to this game, go to that game. Maybe Yankees and Mets fans still want to, you know, drop a bunch of money to have their time wasted. Go park in a shitty area of town and go pay too much money for some shitty food. But the average person doesn't want to do that. And now we're to the point where we're even making it more difficult to watch these games on TV. If you're someone who has a NFL Sunday ticket, what are you paying for at this point? You got nothing. So what you need Prime, you need what's the name of the new dumb Fox app? You need ESPN, you need a Peacock, you need a Paramount Plus. You need a bunch of nonsense to watch one stupid little game, and long term it's having a negative effect. We are seeing that Gen Z does not really care about sports like their older counterparts. Unless they are in a sports family, they don't care. They just don't care. And in an area where really only live TV seems to be able to hold on to an audience, that's not good. That's not good. WWE, it seems to want to be kind of, well, I don't want to say WWE, TKO. The problem is TKO. TKO wants to turn the WWE into a prestige, a prestige event, but like they have with UFC. But we've got to be honest about UFC though. The UFC is not nearly as popular as it was again 10 years ago. So all they had to do was hit a downslide in terms of fighter popularity, and they're going to be no different than boxing. When was the last time anybody cared about boxing? People talk about boxing now because Netflix has managed to resurrect a little bit of enthusiasm for it. But when was the last time you heard someone talking about going to a boxing match? Let alone even caring about who was fighting. So WWE is, and so unlike real sports, be blunt about it, WWE does not have that luxury. This is a traveling Marvel movie, so you've got to be able to get to as wide an audience as possible, and cutting out families, and reducing your demo's ability to access the show is going to have, at least in my opinion, going to have a detrimental impact, and it's going to start with generational capture. The second dad or mom can't bring their kids to a live event, because it's the live event that creates the magic. Even if you're a little kid, right, you don't really remember what you saw. You've gone to wrestling, and you know that there's something special about it. So it's, you need to have the ability to hook in that fan, really very early on, or they may be into it, and then once puberty kicks in, they're going to move on to something more exciting. And how many times are you going to be able to try to hot shot everything by creating a pseudo attitude era? It's just by virtue of the WWE's, by Vince's, by Vince's very slow burning plan to make the WWE more mainstream and accessible to to all aspects of pop culture, that it is where it is. But you don't get that without again, without the families who brought you to the dance. So this is I don't quite understand what the long term strategy is, but the short term plan seems a little short sighted.
The card itself right now is Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes for the Crown Jewel Championship. That's right, that once a year title that they bring out. Sort of like the Westminster Dog Show. You see it, then it goes away. Then it's going to be Stephanie Vaquer versus the winner of the SmackDown Women's Triple Threat, which probably will be even a triple threat for this one, so they can get both Jade Cargill and Tiffany Stratton on the same card for the, once again, Women's Crown Jewel Championship, that one-time match, but title. But once again, you bring out like the Westminster Dog Show, and then nobody sees it again for the rest of a friggin' year. And last but not least, John Cena versus AJ Styles. I'm glad AJ's getting this final match because he's been underappreciated, I'd say, with WWE TKO for what he's done the last decade. But this is a match where there's no build, no stakes. I get it, it's a dream match, but it's just they deserve better. I mean, you figure this should have been like the Intercontinental Championship, Cena versus Styles. Can Cena win the IC title for the last time? Can AJ Styles finally win the feud, like something rather than just Triple H announced, oh yeah, we're now having this at Crown Perth, when their build will be 2 weeks, but Cena's not showing up because he's not on the docket.
I mean, I guess Cena asked for the match, so in that respect, fine. But no, I do agree. The one thing I've said, I think I've said it on the show, is that AJ Styles has been the sleeper Mr. WrestleMania. So it would be nice to see AJ get his due at least one more time. At least one more time. I think he should have a world, even if it's a short one, a world title reign. The guy has always delivered. It's just the beat up John Cena era redefined what SmackDown was. You kind of even redefined the Cena character, right? Because it wasn't until AJ showed up and kind of started, and they were beating up John Cena every week. It started the turnaround for the Cena character, right? It stopped being the 50-50 yay boo thing, and kind of really started becoming all yays once they realized that that AJ was actually winning in the story. They had a reason to boo AJ. So AJ has played a big part in Cena's trajectory, and again, he's been other than when he got injured, he's been holding it down. And really, since we kind of came out of the COVID era, it kind of feels like they haven't really known what exactly to do with him. Some of that is just, there's only but so much space you have, at the top of the card, right? But that Undertaker match that he was supposed to have in front of the live crowd should have been what propelled him to the upper echelon. And it's just kind of been stuck. So at least listen, I at this point, I don't blame Cena for wanting to go through all the old hits. Hopefully he finds a way to sneak in Dom. I don't know what Gunther's timetable is, but it would be nice to see maybe let Gunther be the one to send Cena out on his shield. But Cena, in the meantime, a face versus face Cena AJ match should be fun. And I'm sure we're going to get Brock in there at least one more time. So
we're running out of time. I mean, there was supposed to be like 5 dates left. So, I mean, I'm guessing that either The Miz or Sheamus is going to get one more run with Cena because they're part of the old guard that Cena's worked with, and there is history. As I said, you probably want to do one with Gunther, and look, if you're trying to elevate people, Jacob Fatu, Braun Breaker, maybe Oba Femi, one of those three you'd love to get seen in with so he can give him the rub. He can give him, like, this is the future of WWE rather than just wasted on Dom or Brock or Gunther, because those three are already made. For Cena, it's like you need to have him make somebody before he's done, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, what are we gonna do with Oba, Braun?
Yeah,
and Jacoby, because has disappeared ever since Sammy Boo Boo came back to SmackDown.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jacob took time off. We can't fault the guy for needing a little bit of time off. But the and again, it gets a little hard because you only have but so much time to do certain things. And I get it. People want to see the greatest hits, so you want to give them the greatest hits. But Cena did a phenomenal job elevating Logan Paul. People have kind of slept on that match and not given it the praise and credit that it should have gotten. But it established the fact that Logan Paul is probably going to be someone who will be a world champion at some point in time. Dom is in the middle of being made, but he hasn't been made yet. I think a little dust up with Cena would be something that's vital for his profile. And Gunther, I think, well, I mean, he got Goldberg. I think you got to give Gunther something big. Gunther has kind of done a lot for them. He carried Punk. He carried Punk over the finish line when he got blown up. He got Goldberg through to the other side. So giving him something high profile like being the guy who sends Cena out of his back, that's a big freaking deal. I would say right now Braun is probably going to wind up a Brock, so Braun doesn't need Cena. He does, unless you're going to do something where you're going to jam them all into Survivor Series together. Braun and Jacob don't really need that right now. They're also not, they're also not in his orbit, so it's a little different. It's just a little different. Oh, well, I mean, I guess
Like, here are the final dates. I'll read them off. October 11th, we know that's going to be AJ. So now we're down to 4, which is November 10th in Boston, November 17th, New York City, November 29th, Survivor Series, and December 13th, Washington, D.C. So he might only wrestle 3 more times. He has 4 more appearances, so that's 3. So you start looking, going, all right, once again, you have all these people. You got Drew McIntyre you want to reward. He's been doing everything except, eating the crap and pooping it out. As I said, you have Dom, you have Sheamus, you have The Miz, there's also, as I said, Gunther, maybe Seth is involved. Like, there's going to be people who are going to be left out. So who makes the call? Is it Cena makes the final call because it is his retirement tour, or does WWE find a way to sort of pigeonhole this in and go, well, no, we really want this, even though you're going to take something away from your bingo card?
It might be a little bit of both, right? I mean, Cena's a soldier, so he's going to do what they want him to do. We saw how he made this disaster of a heel turn work, right? Because this was bopped from the word go, and he was, from what we understand, although not confirmed, he was the adult in the room while the 2 bosses were fighting each other over what direction to go. He was the one who said, no, we're going to do it this way. And then he made it work for what it was, up to and including having the foresight to understand, the way they told the story in the Punk match, which direction the character really needed to be going, because, people accepted the heel turn, but they weren't really feeling the heel turn. So he's kind of been instrumental in protecting his brand, but he will also still kind of do what's asked of him. But there are some guys on the list that, sure, but they have nothing but other opportunities for them. A lot of this is going to be about proximity, and unfortunately, what's the biggest city that we're going to be in? There are some beats that you're not gonna be able to hit. Like, you're in Washington D.C. It would have been nice to see Cena and Batista one more time, but we know Big Dave is not anywhere near that. So hopefully, maybe he at least just comes out and says something to him or whatever. But I don't know. They have time to do something special, and then even then, I'll be honest, I would not be shocked if they take a look at the state of things and say, hey, it may actually be more important for us to actually have your actual last match be at Mania. So do you want to let us set something up, and then you come back to this one last time, and we give you a real, a proper send off, or is the send off going to be this? So I really wouldn't be shocked, if they tried to convince him to delay the last time.
Speaking of shocked, a lot of people were shocked with Jasmine Nix. She is leaving the company on her choice, not theirs. They wanted to re-sign her. She turned it down, and here it is, folks. She actually behaved like an adult. I know there's a lot of indie wrestlers who are like, no, you gotta just throw gasoline on the fire, burn the place down, show double middle finger, say very, very evil empire. And I give this young lady credit. She explained, hey, it's a financial decision. This is not what I want. I basically paraphrasing, I believe I am worth more. There's better opportunities for me. I thank WDB, but at this point in my career, I don't want to take a lesser deal when I can probably do better in life in general. Like, I give her credit for that, because as somebody said, how many people would turn down a guaranteed contract?
Yep. Listen, I get it. I mean, I do. She was popular. If she changed her mind, she'd probably always come back. But people got to understand, one, she handled like class because she's already a professional athlete, right? She was the one who was playing soccer professionally or something like that overseas. So she understands, and she's a good looking girl or woman. She has a lot of other opportunities. The WB has also given her a very important skill set, right? Improv and stunt work. So for someone like that, kind of the sky's the limit, and they do control a lot of what it is you can and can't do. And for her, being someone who did make a massive change and left a lot behind, and dove into the investment, 60K is nothing to sneeze at, but something is telling her that she is, she's capable of earning more, right? And I don't understand what people don't understand. The NXT guys do not get. I think people are a little delusional about what the NXT folks make. Because on average, yeah, you're looking at 50, 60, 70K, maybe 80 or 90 if you came in with a little more equity, and then you don't start making six figures until you bump up. So one, I think the people making fun of her for only making 60K probably have never actually made 60K in their lives yet. And then people are mad for walking away from it, don't understand, hey, like, she has a lot of other opportunities. Sometimes wrestling, for some people, even if they like it, is still just that. It's a job. It's a job. And as much as you love your job, if they don't have the ability to give you what you're looking for, most people will turn around and go look. And clearly she wasn't as happy as she felt she could be, and felt like she was missing out on some things she wanted to be a part of. And she made a tough choice, but she's also handled it with class. She's handled it with class. So, this should be a lesson to people on how to conduct your affairs like an adult, unlike the morons attacking Gail Kim for having an opinion.
So here's the uncomfortable truth with her. She wasn't getting brought up in the main roster. That's not her fault. There's too many friggin' people. And from what I've heard, there's probably 6 women in NXT who sort of know, yeah, you're getting brought up within the next year. Jordan Grace, Blake Monroe, Sol Ruka, Lola Vice, Lash Legend, and Zarya. They've been either told or they sort of know, hey, this is happening sooner rather than later. The rest are sort of stuck there. And I get it, it's not everybody can make it. But Kevin, at some point, when does WWE start phasing out talent like Mishin, Natalia, Bailey?
Well, people like people like that. Well, we don't know yet. Actually, let me take that back. So, in the old days, people like Natalia and Bailey, they don't go anywhere. They just get used elsewhere. And it's their presence isn't clogging up the roster a lot. And so was Homecoming this week or last week? Oh, this week was the Invasion. So, the one thing that people should have pulled away from Homecoming last week, watching Charlotte wrestle all the other girls, Charlotte exposed just how not ready a lot of the girls are for the main roster. They're doing great. They do better every week on NXT, but Charlotte's been on the main roster for a long time, and Charlotte versus everybody else was they weren't even in the same continent. So there's a reason why you're seeing people not come up, and it's because they have still a lot more work to do. But you're going to start seeing people phased out quietly, on the NXT side, because they do have a lot of people in there, but they also do have a lot of content, so just because you haven't been pulled up yet doesn't mean you're not going to get pulled up in a year from now. It's really the if you made it to the main roster, you have how do I say it? You have proven your worth and have earned the ability to be there. It's up to the NXT kids to prove that they should be on the main roster and that they deserve a shot at it. It's not the other way around.
I get that, but I'd rather Jordan Grace than Nikki Bella. Like, eventually, you have to get younger. You can't just, because if this is the case, then fire 75% of a roster, and let's just do celebrity match. Like, hey, next WrestleMania 42, Cody Rhodes versus Stephen Amell for the WWE Heavyweight Championship. Seth Rollins, the Visionary, versus Tim Tebow. Hey, better yet, Brock Lesnar versus Eddie Hall. Let's do that, Kevin. We'll just get big celebrities and
it's not
ruin the kids. We don't need to pay all these kids. We can just focus on celebs.
It's not the same thing, because what would happen is you pull them up, and then they get destroyed. They get destroyed while being on the main roster. You crush their equity. They toil around for 3 or 4 years, and everybody starts bitching when they get fired. That's the reality of it. Versus you let them, and people got to remember too, you could have been someplace else in the WWE, or hell, you could have actually been in the WWE and been in developmental for 6, 7, 8, 9 years before you made it to the main roster, right? Like it's the average person back in the day, unless they grew up in it, like unless you were a Brett, someone where your family had been doing business with the McMahons, so they grabbed you relatively young. You weren't there until you were in your very late 20s, very early 30s, and then if you were going to be a champion, you generally weren't getting your hands on the belt until you were like your mid 30s. So it's people constantly ringing the "we need youth" bell. It's yeah, fine. Youth is always great, and you're going to have standouts. Again, a big standout is Braun Breaker, right? Braun was a big standout. Tiffany, if she stops doing this cheerleader Sabu shit, we'll have a very long run. But you should not be being pulled up until people know that you're ready. I think we saw just maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I think Corbin was on with Coach, and he didn't say who told him, but he said that there was a conversation that Triple H had with people, with the main roster, and he told him that they needed to tighten up the work because it wasn't there, and this was to the main roster. So if the boss, who you can say what you want about him, the guy is one of the greatest ever. If your boss who has done it and did it at a very high level, and would have continued to until his heart said he could not, Triple H bridged decades. So if your boss is telling you, nah, man, we got to tighten up, that means that message trickled down all the way to the bottom. So people being in a holding pattern is not necessarily a bad thing. Also too, I still do think that at least on the WWE side of TKO, you got to have a handful of people in a position of power who are keenly aware that the current strategy is not the best for them long term. So there is probably a plan in place to start utilizing these talents a little bit better, and they're probably figuring out how to affordably resurrect the house show circuit, because you have to tour. If you don't tour, you wind up in the AEW boat, where you have a lot of athletically gifted people, but their work is the shits because they're not working on their craft, and you have to work on your craft in front of a live crowd, and different kinds of live crowds. And again, you see this with the acquisition of AAA. If COVID never happened, they would have had ROH, the partnership with TNA. So there's clearly there's more there than what we're privy to. But so that's why I'm like, I wouldn't stress about not juggling people around. But at the same time too, the lower part of the system, or rather say the developmental part of the system, is designed to kind of be a little bit of a grinder, of a meat grinder, and you're going to start seeing people drop out because you do have to have an acute sense of mental toughness. It has to be the strongest of the strong. So especially if you're going to be bumped up, and a lot of times, someone, for example, will use Matt Riddle as an example, right? You did well in NXT, but you did shit in the main roster. So being patient is the more prudent way to go, as opposed to just throwing them out there. Because again, we'll see a lot of these talented girls get pulled up, and it's gonna be a damn disaster. It's gonna be criminal. It's gonna be criminal to waste a lot of talent like that, especially when there's no place else to go.
Speaking of criminal, Masha Slamovich. TNA invested heavily in her. I mean, she was going to be the next Jordan Grace. They put the title on her. They gave her big wins. They were featuring her in NXT, and now she's under investigation by TNA for domestic violence allegations. If you do not know, there has been a series of texts in which she was dating former MLW star Akira, who is, and the texts have, they're pretty very graphic. I mean, he's talked about how she assaulted him, she mentally abused him. She sort of admitted that, hey, we've hurt each other. I'll say this because I know Michael Elgin's going on. I'll just sweep another rug like he did with Don Callis. This is a different TNA, and I think we can agree that because they're trying to get a TV deal, because they're working with WWE, the old way is not going to work. They have to take this seriously, and they have to really look in the hard to mirror and go, okay, is Masha Slamovich worth it for the company?
Man, yeah, like you said, this is a different TNA, different ownership. It's got a very strong partnership with the WWE, which in turn means they'll eventually have some kind of partnership with AAA, and God only knows what's going to come from Japan, but I assure you, something's going to come out of Japan within the next 2 years. When you're poised to become the official number 2 company, you can't have something like this around your neck. I think they're being very fair. I mean, listen, the truth of the matter is, if anybody who actually, understands what happens during domestic abuse, a lot of times it is a two-way street. We saw this with Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, probably the most prolific one that I can think of. But it still happened. And coming out on the other side of the YouTube or Me Too era, you have to be very careful about how you pursue things. And if you want to scream about accountability flows both ways. So those texts were pretty salty. We've seen some of Akira's friends come out and make their opinions very known. I guess the best way to put it is, hey, clearly there's other things at play here. Hopefully everybody gets the help that they need, and that they recover from whatever demons are dragging them down, and she finds a way to bounce back, because she is still relatively young in her career. But if she doesn't make the necessary changes, she's not going to have a very long career.
If you're TNA, what do you do? I mean, they pulled her right now from all future events. Her contract is running out. I mean, and I sound cruel because people say, "Oh, you gotta give her a chance. You gotta." This is a business. I mean, if we saw what WWE with Odyssey Jones, and they didn't even have a lot of proof. They just went,
"Yep,
you're done." So if you're TNA, and I get it, invested a lot in her. You thought she was going to be the next big star. Is it safe to say they had to just wash their hands? Just go, look, we don't know exactly what you did, but this isn't a good look, and we got to do what's best for business.
It's a little different when you're privately owned company. The shareholders, even I think back then that was still under Vince's purview, right? It wasn't TKO yet.
Honestly, Jones, that was under the TKO.
I was under TKO, so yeah, there you go. So, TKO, even though we seem to let some fighters get away with some stuff, you're a brand new, you're a newly minted publicly traded company. You got a lot of shareholders with a lot of money on the line. There's going to be a lot of pressure to make sure there are not any problems. The TNA, you're privately owned, you're smaller, you're a little under the radar. This is not a major news story. So as long as it doesn't get worse, they have the wiggle room to let it play out. And listen, we've got to be honest too. They have Moose on their roster. And they allowed Moose to
Sure, but that was
and,
almost a decade ago, and Moose is a big name. Moose is also a guy that you haven't heard anything lately, and it's also as you said, they are partnering with WWE. They're trying to get a TV deal. You worry what else is coming out because we're just in the early stages of this, and you know how it is. Once it gets out, then more people chime in. Somebody comes out of the woodwork, and next thing you know, this thing is. We're gonna find out more. It's like when you pull a stone up. There's gonna be more creepy stuff you didn't know were there.
I have a funny feeling that what's going to happen is, and I don't mean to put it this way, but you're going to see a lot of indie bullshit start coming up, and indie bullshit, no one cares. Just no one cares about indie bullshit. You're going to find out that they probably got into some fights at a show. They were shitty to each other. It really was where it's going to be the most damning is going to be who are the people in the house and who are the people in the car with them, and what do they have to say. And I think as of right now, it looks like anybody who had something to say kind of got their stuff out. With the exception of her boyfriend, I don't think he said too much. But so it's we still have about another couple weeks. But I think once another couple weeks passes, this is probably done, unless you find out that she did some stuff. But I think I think TNA has the freedom to be like, hey, listen, you want to get back on this? You're gonna be put on ice for probably a good 6-7 months, and then you better come back here sober. You better come back here sober, come back in shape, and if we hear any problems from you, it's going to be the last time you hear from us. I think right now they're because they're also too. I think the mindset is, hey, this thing happened. It's unfortunate. We're also trying to preserve a little bit of dignity here. Which I think people do kind of forget sometimes is, hey, an accusation is still an accusation. And when you see relationships like this, it's hardly ever what you see in the Lifetime movie. She's clearly she's got problems. She's got problems. So I'm sure the discussion is how do we help her get through her problems? Is it worth helping her get through her problems? And how bad is it? Right now, they've probably circled the wagons. They probably said, give us your phone. We're going to go through your texts. We want to see what's up. Don't bullshit us because we find that you're lying. You're out of here. It's no different than what the WWE used to do. Everybody forgets the only reason Enzo doesn't have a job is because Enzo wasn't honest, about what happened to him, even though he was later exonerated. If you're honest and you tell everybody what the hell is going on, until it gets unless it's something where like what's his name, Jack Gallagher, unless you're a really big piece of shit, they're gonna kind of let it play out because they understand the news, cycle. And so it's not going to be a big deal unless there's something to have a big deal made out of. Right now, this is kind of the worst of it. We understand her background. We understand how lethal she can be if she wants to be. But I'll say the important thing here to note here too is that, hey, we're also kind of seeing a change in the energy here, right? Because if you look at what was done to speak during speaking out, a lot of people who should not have been canceled or whatever got their careers destroyed. And you're at least now we're in a place where it seems to be what's good for the goose is good for the gander. But so she is being taken to task for her behavior. She has been taken to task for some of her actions. Right now, it's just I think if TNA thought it was really, really bad and outside of the scope of you got to get some help to learn how to handle your business, I think she would have already been cut. I think she would have already been cut. So right now, I think it's going to be she's off of TV. She's probably going to be off of TV for the next 6-7 months. And as long as charges don't get filed, it'll be okay. But if she's got to go to court, it's a wrap.
Speaking of it's a wrap. Well, yeah, the Edge and Christian tag team is a wrap for now. After the latest pay-per-view where Beth Copeland got involved, got pile driven, and that ended that. I guess that ended the feud because Edge is going home to protect his family. He doesn't want to get him in harm. We are breaking up a tag team, i.e., he's shooting Percy Jackson the final season. Well, he can't be bothered with AEW. Now you hear that MJF is gone because he's taking another vacation, i.e., he has a movie deal. This isn't working here for AEW, especially when these are two of the sort of semi-draws. Mm-hmm. Your ratings are going down, and WBD might be selling. What is going on, Kevin? Is this the death throw for AEW? I mean, are we now at this point where it's like, okay, we got to start calling time on the career? Because you get a sense once the Paramount deal goes through, they're cutting big. They're getting rid of AEW as quickly as you can dump broccoli on and when your little kid into the dog's mouth.
Yeah, oh, hell yeah. Well, I think listen, we'll chop this up a little bit. So we'll talk about the storyline, right? Again, I can't, Edge's contractual obligations did not come out of nowhere. They had plenty of time to work around this. So the fact that this is how we're going to end this, that how we're going to put this storyline on pause, is really stupid. You made Edge look like a bitch. If this isn't a sympathetic husband's got to go take care of the family thing. You made him look like a bitch. He got turned on. He got turned on by friends. They didn't even really drive home the fact that they were the ones who helped him, get back and get ring ready. That he was willing, that he dropped their names in WTV when they were long gone. They just kind of threw them together, and if you knew the story, you knew the story, which is a major problem with AEW, right? The AEW it's been 6 years, so they should have started to be able to develop a little bit of history. But when you bring in people from other places, your fans tend to know the history from other places, but you've got to find a way to address that history and use it as a foundation to build what you want to build. And instead, it was just, we're just going to throw them together and we're going to call them Rated FTR, and they're going to have a couple of matches, and then all of a sudden they're going to turn on him. Whatever. Whatever. You kind of made a big deal out of getting Edge and Christian back together again. I don't even really understand how we got here, other than some things happened, and then Christian needed Edge to come save him, and then Edge came to save him. There was not a lot of groundwork put into this, especially after especially after Christian hits him with the big FU. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense how any of this shit's been put together. But so you have this match, you have this big match, you're building up to it. Tony decided to book for the venue that they were going to have for 14 hours instead of the 114 hours of TV that he needed to be booking for to keep this going after this pay-per-view match. Because you put Edge and Christian together, you get them in Toronto, you let them do their thing, in Toronto, and then you can still drop Beth on her head. You can still continue the story, But really, the story should have been both Beth and Edge got taken out, or just Edge and Beth threw herself on the body, and then you have to put Christian in a spot where now he has to really truly be babyface, and he saves Beth, and then FTR can leave, and the whole story is we got to take Edge out. But Edge has got to leave on the stretcher, which makes more sense than I watch my wife. I get my ass kicked, and then they kick my wife's ass, and then they come out and they make fun of her. And the most I got is I can't do this. I got to go home, bro. Like if you're not seeing red, frothing at the mouth, you demanding buckets of blood, then what the hell is the point of this? Because this is the meat and potatoes of wrestling, right? We've talked about this on here. Wrestling is the lowest common denominator. It is about visceral reactions, visceral emotion. Everybody understands the need to want to get retribution when your loved one is injured. So the fact that we don't have Edge out here looking for buckets of blood, it's asinine. If you were going to do this story, we should have been in Beth's hospital room, so that the priority should have been, hey, I can't go there right now. I got to make sure she's okay. Once I know she's okay, we can come back and we can handle business. Like, but instead, you made Edge look weak. You made him look like a bitch. You made him look like a bitch. And the fact that Christian doesn't come out during the FTR segment with Stokely, to run them into the ground in a promo is equally baffling. Because now, what are we doing with Christian? This show fails because the writer and the booker is a failure. He's managed to learn nothing in 6 years, bro. Like, what I just give you, like three or four different storyline options for this in 2 minutes, and that's just me spitballing without putting any real thought into it. But it was, we're going to have them in Toronto, and we're going to put them back together again because it's going to be a big deal. Okay, great. So listen, at the end of the day, no one buys AEW pay-per-views. That is what it is. They have roughly the same viewership as ECW did. That's pitiful because ECW didn't have the resources that AEW had. It didn't have social media. So like it wasn't on one of the oldest and largest cable networks on the planet. So to have such a small viewership, and it's trending downward. It's not like it's holding static or increasing; it's trending downward. So this is pitiful. You can't book for the pay-per-view. You do weekly live TV. You've got to book for live TV. You just have to. You just have to. Anything else is foolish at this point. And 2 weeks ago, they were in the low fives. We're not even talking the mid fives or the high fives. They were in the low fives. This week, they were back in the low sixes. So the trend is there. The NBA playoffs tell you what you're probably going to be at. Back to school, you get a little pickup, but once school is in session, it drops back down, and you're hovering around what you got during the NBA playoffs, which means that when we get to the next round of NBA playoffs, they're going to be in the low fives. And when we come out of school, the new norm is going to be the new low. So I know that I guess the only thing that they can say that they can do with any efficiency is chase new lows. But how low do you want to go before you go, oh shit, we have messed this up and we got to do something different? I don't want to hold Edges. I think I said on Twitter, I don't think that we should be holding their outside obligations against them. Listen, the fact of the matter is, before the mid '80s, most of the guys were football players who were wrestling because they needed off-season money. So that's we watch Piper pop in and out. It's just something that happens. You should really want your talent doing other things, because as long as they're your talent, they're bringing eyes back to you. So like this is Percy Jackson Lightning Thief thing. Kids on Disney Plus are going to see him, and although their dads will go, "Hey, that's Edge," they're going, "Oh, that's Adam Copeland," and when they Google Adam Copeland, they see the AEW logo pop up. They may accidentally wind up in AEW. Would I be horrified if my kid wound up on AEW? Sure, absolutely. But that said, my kids have watched AEW, and I think I've said it here. My daughter saw Sammy getting beat up by somebody, and the question out her mouth at 10 was, "Does that little boy's parents know he's getting beat up like that on TV?" So it's kind of is what it is. But this idiocy, this was fucking idiocy. Tony, this should not be happening. Tony at this stage in the game should be doing a better job, even if it's not much better. It should still be better than this. They destroyed the Edge character with this segment.
Speaking of destroyed, that's right. There was at GCW, the A24 produced a documentary on death matches to which Gail Kim, formerly of TNA and a actual wrestler, blasted with death match spot, calling it pure trash.
Which it is.
Kevin, you and her are already kindred spirits. Brett Lauderdale came out and
loser.
Tell me how you really feel.
Oh,
and basically ripped her, saying, "I dare anyone to name one memorable Gail Kim match." Spoiler alert, that didn't end well for him.
Yeah, it should not have. This is fucking asshole. This little turd. I get it, bro. You dealt some drugs. You dropped the N-bomb a couple times in your fake rap career, and you got to steal someone else's money. All I've seen him do is get people hurt, grift off of somebody else's hard work, and be in a spot that he had no business being in, with a garbage fucking company. That guy owes everything to Matt Cardona. So he sometimes what really pissed me off is, especially with these indie goofs, is sometimes you just gotta know when to keep your fucking mouth shut. This fucking turd needs to learn to keep his fucking mouth shut.
I was worried for you about this second, Kevin. Last couple of weeks, you've been very mellow. I mean, when Marcel Dorf was dropping more F bombs than you, I'm like, oh crap, Kevin must have lost his touch. No, you're back in rare form. So, but no, Kevin, I'm reading this here. They said, hey, this from A24, which is a real movie studio, director Michael Philippou shared a clip of the exploding barbed wire match. And as I said, this is art. This is it plans for a documentary about deathmatch wrestling, how it's passionate, but these guys are real athletes. I'm just telling what I'm hearing, Kevin, from them. Deathmatch wrestling actually has storylines to it.
What? Okay. Listen, I don't know. Oh, I was going to put it a certain way, but I think that might be a little too much. that might be a little too hard in the paint.
What? That's basically two guys you could probably grab from, Mass and Cass, give them an 8-ball of Coke and a malt liquor. They fight to the death.
It's bum fights. It's bum fights inside of a wrestling ring, a bunch of glass. So it's like, yes, I remember the very first time I saw the exploding cage, and when I was a kid, right? You order the thing off of High Spots. The VHS comes, or you're at an ECW show and you saw it. You saw a bunch of High Spot crap up for sale. Before Feinstein got stopped by Chris Hansen. And you watch this stuff and like, oh my god, I can't believe people would actually do this crap. And then you learn about it and you realize, oh wait, this is just garbage tier indie shit. I'm trying not to be too rough because
no, you can be rough, Kevin. I'll
put it to you like this. I've met some dudes, like a guy like Necro Butcher is a really nice man. He's a really nice man.
He can't work for it. You can just say it. He can't work.
Yeah,
stretch his ass out and make him squeal like a pig.
But at the same time, too, I also watched him and another guy take fluorescent light bulbs, smash it up in the head on a AstroTurf field that was usually used for a community soccer practice, and we lost the building because the market promoter allowed them to come do this. I won't say what promotion it was because it was someone who should have known better. It was someone who should have known better, and as someone who is currently employed in a major company, but he should have known better, and he allowed it to happen. And 10 years later, there will never ever be wrestling inside of that building again. The these guys do this shit because they can't do it. They can't, and it's the best thing they can do. It's no different than watching children throw a tantrum in the supermarket. It's their moment of glory is negative attention. So they do this really stupid shit, and by the grace of God, no one has they managed not to kill somebody. But the other part of it too is that you're going through these light bulbs and people in the front row breathing this shit in, or you never know when a piece of glass is gonna fly and hit someone in the face or in the eye. It's dog shit. It's dog shit. And the fact that we're going to be put in a spot where this dog shit's going to be glorified, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. This is no different than some weird, creepy fetish porn. That's where this belongs. Sure, and wrestling's for everybody, and there's something for everyone. Fine, but you watch. Go to the back of the video store, go behind the red curtain, and go watch that shit in your own time. Everybody else here doesn't want to see this crap. And the other part of it is there is also a there is something of an ethical responsibility here, because kids are going to see two assholes, one guy from a Home Depot parking lot, the other guy from the other guy fucking coming out of the back storage closet of Target, and they're going to go stand on something and they're going to go fall, and they're going to go fall through some glass. And just like we saw, during the Foley era and even the Hardy era, how long before some kids go do some dumb shit? I mean, it's people watch this because who doesn't love watching a train wreck, right? Who doesn't love watching a train wreck? Who hasn't been captivated by the Hindenburg explosion? But outside of that, once the shock values ended, you're kind of left feeling empty, right? The dopamine rush wears off, and you realize you wasted your time, and you're trying to figure out how two grown ass men were stupid enough to go put themselves in harm's way like this, and the fact that someone paid for it, it kind of makes you feel even dirtier. So I don't want to sit here and have to pretend like this is some grand art that needs to be preserved and discussed. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's a bunch of fucking losers who have no real skill, doing gross stunt work. It's fucking lame. And I'm sorry, the people who have performed at a high level, doesn't matter how successful they were at that high level, they performed at a high level. That means they were better than 90% of what's currently floating around out there. Whether they were an active wrestler, whether they were a referee, whether they were some kind of a commentator, owner, or booker, whatever. They performed at a high level. So when they give feedback, their feedback is valid. You don't got to like it. You don't have to accept it, but you damn sure better listen to it, because at the end of the day, they know more than you. They know what they're talking about. So it is what it is. Fucking deal with it. But she said what she said. She was entitled to say what she said. Brett is a fucking nobody who should have kept his fucking mouth shut. And I'm glad it blew up in his fucking face, because fine, Gail Kim's WWE career was not what it should have been. But at the end of the day, Gail Kim helped transform women's wrestling and did some really special stuff in TNA. So you give her due and you shut the fuck up, because you're nothing more than a mark who came across some fucking drug money.
I end this by bringing up the most uncomfortable sort of fact question we got to ask. The death match is all that. How much blame goes to three people who everybody in pro wrestling loves, can't say a bad thing about, but they are the ones who probably made this possible? I'll go off actually four: Mick Foley, Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, Paul Heyman. Because I get it.
Terry Funk in there too.
and I get it. Everybody loves Mick Foley. He's the nicest guy probably in pro wrestling. You never hear a word about him regarding abusing divas, being creepy. He does more charity work than I even though I don't like his politics, he's done more charity work than you can imagine. The Hardys, every young wrestler, emulated them. They are, from what most people have said, pretty cool people to deal with backstage. Paul Heyman's helped more people, but they're the ones who made. If you take them out of the equation, death match don't become popular. Mick Foley was the one who brought it over from Japan to ECW. The Hardys are the ones who took this kind of stunts into WWE, made it super popular. Paul Heyman built ECW off this, and I get it. They are pillars in the pro wrestling community, but they are the ones who have allowed GCW, XPW, and all these to flourish because people went, "Ooh, we could be stars if we emulate them."
I don't think you can blame the death match on Heyman and the Hardys. The backyard nonsense, yes. The Hardys all the way. Hardys all the way. And even Heyman didn't really do too much death match stuff. They tried it, didn't really work. And especially when you got towards the end of ECW, ECW looked more like what TNA was going to become than it did the old deathmatch stuff. You really weren't getting a lot out of Sandman and New Jack at that point. It was more about the Swingers and the Diamonds and the Yorks, and Kid Cash and the high impact, no breaks all go style. So like ECW doesn't fold. AJ Styles would have been the next RVD. So but at the end of the day, I think kind of where the death match sinks his teeth into is that as Foley got super popular, access to this footage became easier to get a hold of, and people started seeing the crazy shit that they were doing in Japan, and it helped having an anchor like Terry Funk, like Mick Foley, and seeing them in these matches, and then kind of very tamely, but seeing them kind of incorporate it, into their style. It was a novelty. But you don't really see this bullshit start to happen until after ECW goes down, and then CZW pops up. Because not even XPW had its own weird shit, but like they weren't doing all the glass and that shit. They were doing dumb things like trying to
But they're the one, like
the New Jack.
it was like the precursor. And then it's like, well, how can I top that?
Yeah,
how can I top this? Mick got thrown off cage twice, which should have, that alone, and even as we saw the dark side of a ring, there were like neurologists who were telling him, you cannot wrestle. We will not clear you. And he kept finding a way around them, finding him a way. That's what leads us now to a Darby Allin's, the GCW's. I forget the guy who does a pizza cutter. That idiot. Nick Gage. Like they got this from Mick Foley. So I hate to say, like, how much blood is on Mick Foley and Heyman and the Hardys' hands, where it's like, you made this crap possible, and then everybody decided, let's take it to the next level.
Dude, yeah, this really starts going bad with CZW, right? We were 3 months. 3 or 4 months into the end of ECW, and CZW pops up and does all that glass shit. It's and then it just goes to hell from there. It just goes to hell from there. And unfortunately, New Jersey, because New Jersey is the Wild West. It's the Wild West. You see a lot of this bullshit happen there. It gets to take root in Jersey. And then it just kind of spreads like a virus. The death match stuff. It's kind of like the Make-A-Wish. It's kind of like the Make-A-Wish of wrestling. It's anybody, any mutant willing to give a promoter a couple bucks and sell a couple tickets is gonna get into this match, and as long as they don't mind bleeding everywhere, they get 5 minutes of adulation, and then they get to keep it moving. The fact, I think it's kind of ridiculous that that someone decided to make a documentary about this dog shit, but You know, they'll make a movie about anything. So, but it's, you know, you can't get mad at people for calling a turd a turd. It's shit. And if someone says it's shit, we gotta go, hey, yeah, it is shit. You might like it, hey, whatever. You can channel your inner German businessman all you want, but do it on your own time.
Very heavily, Sean. Once again, we always love having him on the show because he pulls no punches, takes no dives, and as we saw late recently, we thought he got too mellow. We thought, okay, he was going to become pious after the instance that happened in the world. He was going to be a better man, but he can still reach in and those 95 mile per hour fastball f bombs and go. Nope, I'm letting it loose. I give you once again the man with the largest natural arms in the world. I give you Kevin Apollo. So, Kevin, before we let you go, where can fans check you out at? Where is the Twitter, Instagram, where your podcast, of course? You have several of them. And what is going on with ACW?
ACW is on pause right now. We're working on some things. We'll get there eventually. But right now, you can check me out on Tuesdays and Friday nights with Lauren Connor on the WDW Pro channel for Late Nights with Lauren and Apollo, where we do a late night show. And we talk about pop culture, whatever, the news of the day. Depends, depends on how the night's going. But like I said, Tuesday, Thursdays at 11 p.m. Usually we're over by 12:31. So check us out there. Toonie Town Wrestling, or Toonie, say Toonie Talk TV on Thursdays, Toonie Town Wrestling on Tuesdays. The House of Apollo, I'll be dropping videos soon. So got a couple of fun show ideas I want to kick around. I probably mentioned on Twitter. If you want to get me on Twitter, Twitter's Wardog Apollo. Instagram is the House _ Apollo. Other than that, if you need me, I'll pop up, man. It's always a pleasure being here. I appreciate everything you do, and you're cranking out some of the best content out there, man. So keep up the good work.
You're too kind, good sir. Kevin Apollo, ladies and gentlemen, once again, always on a pleasure having you on the show. We come back. A lot more going on here, only on his last call. Last call at the alcohol, only on the last call, YouTube channel.com.